It was supposed to be just another quiet morning in the small village of Namhai. The streets were empty, the clouds hung low, and a soft rain fell over the hills. The people were still waking up, boiling water for tea or sweeping their porches. No one expected anything strange. No one expected to see her. She appeared like a ghost from the mist, a small girl, maybe 8 years old, walking alone down the old forest road. Her dress was torn and wet. Her feet were bare and muddy. Her arms shook with every step. But what made everyone stop and stare was the full-grown German shepherd she carried across her shoulders. The dog was limp. Blood covered its side. One of its legs dangled at a strange angle. The girl's body trembled under his weight, but she didn't stop. Her eyes were fixed forward. Her cheeks were streaked with rain and tears. No one moved at first. They didn't understand what they were seeing. Who was this little girl? Where did she come from? How could someone so small carry a dog so big? She reached the corner of the village gas station. Her legs gave a small shake, but she took another step, and then another, and then one more. The dog didn't move. He was still breathing, but just barely. Mr. Giwan, the gas station owner, opened the door to check the noise outside. That's when he saw her. He dropped the broom in his hand. People began to gather. A woman from the bakery stepped out. A young man on a bicycle stopped and stared. A few kids ran closer but slowed down, watching in silence. Something about the girl made their hearts feel heavy. There was pain in her face, but something more too. Something brave. Something strong. The girl reached the steps of the gas station. Her mouth opened and her voice cracked as she whispered, "Please, someone help him." And then her legs buckled. She fell to her knees, still holding the wounded dog. She didn't cry out. She didn't scream. She simply dropped slowly, like her small body had finally given up. Mr. Giwan rushed forward. "Oh no, oh no, someone call the clinic. Call the vet." He knelt beside the girl, gently trying to lift the dog off her shoulders. But the girl pulled away, clutching the animal tighter. "Don't touch him," she whispered, breath shaking. "He's hurt." She could barely speak, but her eyes, dark, tired, and wide, spoke louder than anything else. She wouldn't let go. Even now, even after carrying him for miles, she was still trying to protect him. All right, sweetheart," Mr. Giwan said softly. "We'll help him, I promise. But you have to rest, okay?" The girl gave a tiny nod, and then she collapsed fully onto the ground. Her arms loosened. The dog let out a faint whine and nudged her with his nose. He was still alive. By now, more villagers had come. A nurse from the health post was checking the girl's pulse. Someone else was trying to keep the dog warm with a blanket. A man pulled out his phone to call the animal clinic, and everyone kept asking the same thing. Who was she? Where did she come from? And how far had she carried that dog? No one had answers yet. But one thing was clear. This little girl had done something few adults could ever imagine. She didn't run from pain. She walked with it. She didn't leave someone behind. She carried them, mile after mile, on her small shoulders, all because she cared. And the whole village was about to learn the full story. The little girl lay unconscious on the cold ground. Her small hands were scratched and red. Her face was pale, but her arms were still half wrapped around the German shepherd. The villagers worked quickly. Nurse Mina, who lived nearby, placed 2 fingers on the girl's neck. "She's breathing," she said. "Weak, but alive." She looked up. "We need to get her inside now." 2 young men carefully picked her up. Others carried the wounded dog on a wooden board. Blood dripped slowly from his side. Someone ran to call the animal doctor. The wind picked up, carrying a chill through the town. Inside the small clinic, the girl was laid on a soft bed. Warm blankets covered her tiny frame. Her foot was swollen and wrapped in dirty cloth. Her fingers had blisters. Her back showed red, marks from carrying too much weight. "She must have walked for hours," Nurse Mina whispered, shaking her head. Meanwhile, the vet, Dr. Hojan, rushed into the animal room. He examined the German Shepherd closely. Broken leg, deep cuts, blood loss, he said quickly. He's in pain, but he's fighting. We need to clean his wounds and stop the bleeding. The dog gave a low whimper, his brown eyes blinking slowly. Hang in there, boy, Dr. Hojan murmured, petting the dog's head. You've got someone who loves you a lot. Back in the clinic, the little girl stirred. Her eyes fluttered open. The lights were bright. The room was quiet. For a moment, she looked confused. Then her first word came like a breath. Scout, nurse. Mina leaned closer. Sweetheart, are you awake? You're safe now. Where's Scout? The girl asked, voice thin like paper. The dog? He's right next door. He's going to be okay. The vet is with him. The girl closed her eyes for a second, then opened them again. Please don't leave him alone. He gets scared. We won't, the nurse promised. What's your name, dear? The girl hesitated, then whispered. Heyun. That's a pretty name, Heyun, Nurse Mina said, brushing the hair from her forehead. Can you tell me where you live? By the woods, Heyun said slowly. Past the big tree with the bird nest. Do you live with your parents? Heyun didn't answer right away. Her lips began to tremble, her eyes filled with tears. There was a fire, she said finally. In the night, there was smoke. I couldn't breathe. Scout barked. He pulled me outside. And your family? Mina asked gently. I wanted to go back in, she whispered. But Scout wouldn't let me. He dragged me away. Nurse Mina's eyes softened. She sat beside the bed and took the girl's hand. I'm so sorry. Heyun turned her face away, tears falling down her cheeks. She was quiet for a long time. Then she asked again, Is Scout really okay? Before Nurse Mina could answer, the door opened. Dr. Hojan stepped inside. He's stable, he said, with a small smile. He's hurt, but he's strong. He's resting now. Heyun let out a long breath, and something in her face relaxed. You saved him, Dr. Hojun added. You carried him all the way here. That's something not many people could do. Heyun shook her head. He saved me first. Outside, the news of the girl and her dog had spread. Villagers whispered the story to each other. They couldn't believe it. A little girl walking barefoot through the forest. A bleeding dog across her shoulders. A child who didn't give up. And still, no one knew how far she had come, or what more the little girl had lost. But now, the town of Namhai had a new name on their lips, Heyun, the girl with no shoes, the girl with the dog, the girl who walked through the woods and carried hope on her back. The sun rose gently over the hills of Namhai, casting light on the small houses, the green fields, and the quiet road that led to the forest. But that morning, the town was no longer just quiet. It was filled with whispers, questions, and sadness. At the town clinic, Heyun sat up slowly in her bed. Her hands were wrapped in bandages. Her swollen foot was still resting on a pillow. She looked tired, but her eyes stayed open now. She kept glancing at the door, listening for any sound. Nurse Mina walked in with a soft smile. Good morning, Heyun. I brought you some porridge. Thank you, the little girl whispered. Can I see Scout? Not yet, sweetheart. He's resting, but I promise he's doing better. Just then the door opened and a tall man in uniform stepped inside. His name was Officer Jisoo, one of the town's kindest police officers. He removed his cap and crouched beside her bed. Hi, Heyun, I'm Jisoo. I heard you've been very brave. Heyun nodded quietly. We're trying to find out what happened, he said gently. Do you remember where your house was? She thought for a moment. Past the river, near the big windmill. There's a red mailbox by the tree, that's where we lived. Jisoo nodded and wrote it down. Thank you. We'll go look today. Don't worry. After leaving the clinic, Officer Jisoo and two others drove out to the forest road. They followed the dirt path, past the windmill, and soon smelled something sharp and bitter. Smoke. What they found stopped them cold. A small wooden house stood in ashes. The roof was gone. The walls were black. The ground was dark with soot. Fire had taken everything. Near the ruins, they saw something that made their hearts ache. A trail of small, barefoot footprints. Tiny, uneven steps. Alongside them were paw prints smeared with blood. The trail led through thorn bushes, over rocks, and down the hill. For miles, the prints stayed together. She really walked from here to town? One officer asked, shocked. Jisu's voice was soft. She didn't walk alone. She carried him. Back at the clinic, Dr. Hojin checked on Scout. The big dog opened his eyes slowly. He wagged his tail once, just once. His breathing was more steady now. "You're a tough one," the doctor said, petting his head. "You and that girl. Both fighters." That afternoon, Nurse Mina rolled a wheelchair into the dog's recovery room. Hyun sat in it, wrapped in a blanket. When she saw Scout, her eyes filled with tears. He tried to lift his head when he saw her. "Scout," she cried softly. She reached out and touched his paw. "I missed you." The dog gave a low, happy sound. His tail moved again. Dr. Hojin smiled. "I think he missed you too." They sat together for a long time. Haeyeon whispered to him, and he listened. Even though neither spoke real words, their hearts understood each other. Soon the town people began arriving at the clinic. They brought clothes, food, blankets, and toys. Someone made a little red scarf for Scout. Another person brought soft slippers for Haeyeon. "She's just a child," one woman said, eyes full of tears. "But she's braver than any of us." The mayor heard about it too. He sent flowers. A bakery owner offered free bread for her. Even the school children wrote cards for Haeyeon and Scout. The girl who had walked alone was now surrounded by love. But one big question still remained. What would happen to her now? She had no home, no parents, nothing but the dog she refused to leave behind, and the town of Namhae, touched deeply by her strength, knew they had to do something. Days passed, but Haeyeon's story didn't fade. It only grew stronger. Everyone in the town of Namhae had heard about the brave little girl who carried a wounded German shepherd through pain, hunger, and fear. And everyone kept asking, "What happens now?" Inside the clinic, Haeyeon was healing quickly. Her foot still hurt, but she could walk a few steps. She smiled more. She laughed softly when Scout tried to lick her face. But at night, when the lights went off, she still cried quietly into her pillow. She missed her parents. One evening, Officer Jisu came to visit again. He sat down beside her, holding a folder in his hands. "Hyun," he said kindly, "we found your house. We know what happened now. I'm very sorry." She looked away, her lips trembling. Scout lay beside her bed and let out a soft whine. "But," Jisu added, "you are safe now, and we've been talking. The town wants to help. You're not alone." Later that day, a woman came to the clinic. Her name was Mrs. Daehee. She owned a little flower shop near the market. She had a warm smile and soft voice. She had lost her own daughter many years ago, and since then her house had been quiet and empty. Mrs. Daehee knelt down beside Haeyeon and said, "I don't want to replace anyone, but if you'd let me, I'd like to give you a home. Both of you." Haeyeon looked at Scout. Then she looked at the woman. Her small hands clutched the edge of her blanket. "Can Scout come too?" she whispered. Mrs. Daehee smiled with tears in her eyes. "That's the deal, you come together." The next week, Haeyeon left the clinic for good. Scout walked beside her, his legs still healing but stronger now. The town cheered as they passed. Some people clapped. Others wiped away tears. It wasn't just a goodbye from the clinic. It was a new beginning. At her new home, Haeyeon had her own bed, clean clothes, and warm meals. Scout had a soft blanket by her side and a name tag on his collar. Scout, family. She started school again. At first she was shy. She didn't speak much, but she drew pictures every day, always of her and Scout, walking through the forest, side by side. Her classmates slowly began to talk to her. One girl shared her crayons. A boy gave her a little drawing of a dog and said, "He looks like Scout." That day, Haeun smiled widely for the first time in weeks. The school decided to honor her with a special award, the Courage Heart Medal. On the day of the ceremony, the auditorium was full. Parents, teachers, children, and townsfolk all gathered. The principal stood on stage and said, "Today we honor someone very special, someone small but strong, someone who reminded us all what love really means." He called her name. Haeun walked to the stage holding Scout's leash. The crowd stood and clapped. Some cheered. Some cried. She stood in the center holding the medal with both hands. She didn't make a speech, she just hugged Scout tightly and whispered, "Thank you." That moment touched everyone in the room, because this wasn't just a story about a girl and a dog. It was about love that never gives up, about courage that doesn't need to be loud, about a heart so pure it could move an entire town. Sometimes the smallest people carry the heaviest things, and they still keep going. Haeun carried Scout for miles, but maybe he carried her heart just as far. Would you have done what Haeun did? Would you carry someone you loved through pain and fear, even if it meant walking alone? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true emotional stories from Rebytales. Until next time, love deeply and never walk alone.